The second one, and probably the most important one, is going to be this hormonal response. There are 4 key hormones that we want to focus on. We have insulin, glucagon, we have leptin, and we have cortisol. Those are kind of the big ones. There's many other hormones throughout the body, but these are kind of the key players here. And hormones are messengers in a way. They have various functions throughout the body. Insulin, for example, is an anabolic hormone. It stimulates your various tissues and cells to take up nutrients, fats, glucose. We mainly associate insulin with glucose levels in the body. And so I'm actually going to go over to the board and we're going to kind of show you a little flow chart and kind of bring this all together. So most of the Western diet that we see today is very high fat, high carbohydrates. And so what we have is we have an increase in carbohydrate consumption. CHO is just carbohydrates. And that can actually lead to this kind of dysregulation in our hormones. So we have an increase in our insulin levels. We actually have an increase in glucose levels. And we also have an increase in, and I'm going to abbreviate this, TG is triglycerides. So actually when you have overconsumption of carbohydrates, your liver actually makes fat from those carbohydrates. Now there's other things that are associated with this, but in simplest terms, this overcarbsumption will lead to these kind of bad effects. We also, if we have high insulin, we also have glucagon, which is one of the 4 that I mentioned. We have lower glucagon levels, which actually can inhibit fat loss. Glucagon has other functions in the body. So like in between a meal, if you're hungry, glucagon's pretty high. It helps stimulate your liver to release glucose in your bloodstream, other various things. And one of its functions is actually increase fats in your bloodstream. And so if we have very high insulin levels, it actually will block that over the long term. So we can see these hormonal changes, and if it's long enough, we have dysfunction. And ultimately, if it's really chronic, so chronic is long-term, years and years and years, we have disease. One more hormone that I want to mention, because this is important, is leptin. Leptin is a satiety hormone. When you eat food, your fat cells will actually secrete leptin, and it'll act up into your brain. And over an extended period of time, people can actually develop leptin resistance. And so from here, we can get leptin resistance. And really what that means is you kind of tend to overeat. You're not getting the signal to your brain to slow down and to stop eating. So over time, it'll come back up over here, and it kind of turns into this vicious cycle of hormone dysfunction. So when we look at this, most of the stuff we see today in medicine and stuff like that is treating down here. We want to treat the symptoms, treat the diseases. Well, why not start over and start up here? Not necessarily just carbohydrates, but the whole spectrum, wiping the slate clean. And so that's my goal here today in presenting the Whole30 is we want to start from the beginning, not necessarily at the end. Does that make sense? Okay. Hormones they're very important. So next thing we want to focus on, we want to have good gut health. A couple things with this. When you consume food, when that food gets into your digestive tract, a lot of people think it's in your body. It's actually not in your body yet. It needs to cross what are called enterocytes. These are your gut cells. If you have very, very destructive or dead, dying gut cells, if your gut's all messed up, there's no way you're going to be able to absorb, digest a lot of the foods that you consume. And so we actually need to eat foods that support good gut function. And so we want good gut integrity. An example with this is what are called lectins. These are anti-nutrients that are found in cereals and to a certain extent in legumes. And they have they increase gut permeability. So when I say, we have good gut function, our gut holds these what are called tight junctions. And it's a barrier. It wants to keep toxic things out and let certain, nutrients in, ions, stuff like that. Well, over time, if you consume lectins in a high enough concentration, you can actually break apart that tight junction, and big molecules, toxins, pathogens, stuff like that will actually get into your bloodstream, and they can go and act on various tissues. I know rheumatoid arthritis has been associated with this, inflammation of the gut, obesity, a lot of different diseases have been associated with increasing our gut permeability, and that's something that we don't want. So we want our foods to support a good gut. We also want our foods to support good, what are called our gut microbiota, or our gut bacteria. You have billions and trillions worth of gut bacteria that reside in your large intestine. This is a good thing. We want that bacteria there because we've actually developed a relationship with those bacteria that they digest, they help absorption, and actually synthesize some vitamins, some fatty acids, short-chain fatty acids, and so they're beneficial. In a lot of diseases, most people who are obese or have, kind of like an inflammatory bowel disease, they have kind of their gut bacteria is thrown off. So they have more of the bad bacteria and less of the good bacteria. And that's not something we want. We want to support good gut function. Actually, about 70% of your immune system resides within your gut. And so your gut bacteria actually plays a huge role in your immune system. And that's kind of the last of the 4 good food standards here, is we want to eat foods that aren't inflammatory. Probably the best example here are omega-6 fatty acids, or polyunsaturated fatty acids. These are found in vegetable oils. They're also found in nuts and seeds to a certain extent. And what we actually have, the current ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is about 30 to 1. We want that ratio to be about 3 to 1. So one of the best ways of decreasing inflammation is just decreasing these vegetable oils and consuming oils that aren't as pro-inflammatory. And one of the big proponents in the last 20 years has been increasing fish oil consumption. How many people take fish oil? I'm sure most people have been. Because of the inflammation, we've seen a lot of this research come out, and it's been important. Well, one of the easiest ways to do it is, instead of increasing our omega-3, we just need to increase or decrease our omega-6 is an easy way of doing it. So decreasing those vegetable oils that have that kind of pro-inflammatory response. And this is a study that actually came out earlier this week, and I'm just throwing it in here because I'm a nerd and I love this stuff, but it kind of shows that diet really comes first. DHA supplementation did not cure cardiomyopathy, which is heart muscle dysfunction induced by a Western diet. So they fed rats very high fat, high sugar diet, got them to develop heart disease, and they tried to cure that with fish oil. Fish oil has been promoted for years and years and years as something that helps lower triglyceride levels and helps with heart disease. And it shows that supplementation doesn't cure everything, that we really need to start at the diet. We need to start at the beginning rather than trying to treat the symptoms that are already there.